Bandido's Tux here, and it is Tuesday, October 1st. You know what that means. The first Descendant targeted loot system has reset. And I got your back for the week with the grind guide. Let's do this.
Tux makes it exciting!
Remember, when you reach the end game and you have your map set to hard, you can access this targeted loot filter system. So what I do is go through and scour this list to find the reactors that the community is frothing at the mouth for, and I look for the best zones to farm those reactors. When we strike gold, I make sure you know. Before we jump into the guide, I want to remind you that we have a new system coming for reactor farming. This is from the dev note log 14. Here they say, we also want to address the issue of reactor farming. To reduce the inconvenience of having to farm a new ultimate reactor every time you switch to a new weapon, we're introducing the reactor implant system. This system will allow you to implant the weapon optimization conditions of other ultimate reactors to your current ultimate reactor. An ultimate reactor can have up to 3 weapon optimization conditions, and you can freely implant weapon optimization conditions based on your weapon settings. With this, you'll no longer have to farm a new reactor each time you switch your weapons, as you only need to implant a new weapon optimization condition into the reactor you're currently using. So you can read that in many different ways, and I'm just gonna reserve on what I actually think that means for now, because it is a little bit confusing and I could lead you astray. So let's just say we have changes, but for now we're going to keep the format the same until these are implemented, which it looks like is going to happen on October 10th. So this whole week the farming will be the same, but perhaps next week with the next update, things will change. Farm guide for the week, just to quickly give you the down low on how this thing is laid out. So I put the featured at the top. The worthy farms are next, so the ones that aren't in the hottest zones but are still pretty decent farms. From there, I give you the components, and then after that, I break everything down by zone. At the very bottom here in the dark blue, I give you all the possible max reactor stats you can get. And then below that, I have sort of like an index, the general attributes for each Descendant and the most common reactor for that Descendant. Of course, there are variables here depending on what mod you're running, as well as how you want to create your build. So take that for a grain of salt. Start off with the best, the featured, and just a heads up, it's not the greatest week for reactor farms. It's so-so. The ones that I cherry picked, one for Hailey here. If you want to run the piercing light with her or the afterglow, then in Echo Swamp, you have Misty Woods, which is a pretty decent farm. Very fast to do. You can do it with just about any Descendant, but of course, Bunny just whips through that. And the mission you want is called Hazy Swamp, and that's gonna give you chill with singular. That's exactly what Hailey needs, and high-powered rounds for her sniper. As far as stats go, Chill and Singular are great, but she's really a Colossus killer with that sniper, so I would definitely vote for damage to Colossus, and Singular is a nice pairing with that if you can. Otherwise, Chill and then crits. And the next one I featured here is an Agna Desert, and this is for Lepic and Eseimo, so I thought you guys would really like this one because Eseimo is shining. I'm using him right now, and he's great. And Lepic is, of course, always been amazing. In Agna Desert, in the zone, the storage, I recommend the previous construct mission. It's actually not a very popular mission, but the truth is it's really easy, and there's lots of spawns in a very small little area. It drops a decent amount of loot. Go in there with your bunny, go with your Freyna, whatever. Very easy mission. And the reason why this is so powerful is because this is the reactor that would pair up with the Secret Garden, which is the best weapons to have in Lepic or Eseimo's hand, depending on what you're doing. But especially for Eseimo, that Secret Garden is great because he's so busy throwing skills, he doesn't have much time to shoot. And to be honest, I don't really like the way that thing shoots, but it's really powerful. It gives you more skill damage to your tech skills. And that's basically what he's throwing out there with his explosives. And Lepic does really well with this. Now, I use Lepic mostly for mobbing, so you might have a different preference to what he's holding for Colossus, depending on how many shots you're throwing out there. But for mobbing specifically, I find it really nice to hold this as an alternative to something like the Thunder Cage, which is also great, or the Enduring Legacy, which is also great. But the Secret Garden is what I'm holding in Lepic's hand otherwise. And the stats you're gonna want here are like fire, tech, and then of course, if you're going for damage to Colossus, there you go. Crits, duration, and range are also really nice for Eseimo and Lepic. As far as the third featured pick, there isn't one. It's not that great of a week, so I refrain from blowing smoke up your rear ends. So as far as worthy farms, there's some decent ones here. In Hagios, there's a mission called Broadband, and it's actually a pretty decent farm. It's like this open area and just run around with your bunny or your Freyna and just nuke everything. But that's non-attribute general rounds in Dimension, which is really good because Gley does well with the Thunder Cage or Enduring Legacy if you want to, and so does Jaber. And Volby can hold any weapon. She does great. So if you're gonna go for Gley, which I am, cooldown and duration are what I'd pair up there. For her mobbing build, range is also really nice. Non-attribute or dimension also. So in Sterile Lands, the large nuclear reactor, it was one of the first missions called out to be best farms in the game, especially for Kuiper. It's really easy. It's basically run around in a circle and they just keep spawning in on you. You can spend a lot of time in here and get a lot of loot. This one's special because it's non-attribute and singular and there's special rounds. And Enzo doesn't have ammo issues. So for weapons like the King's Guard or the Secret Garden or Greg's, those are really nice options to pair up with Enzo, and this would be your reactor. Enzo doesn't really need damage from his reactor, but if you can, then why not? You'll be powering up his drone and also his explosive. I think this one would be really fun for the King's Guard. The next one, I know everybody is on the hunt for the perfect Freyna reactor. And although this isn't the best farm in the world, Sterile Lands mission weapons facility in the Ironworks zone is still pretty decent. It's okay. You don't get a lot of drops, but the mission is relatively fast. And the lineup is perfect. So Toxic, Special Rounds, and Tech is Freyna's Secret Garden setup. That's probably the best weapon in her hand if you're not going to be doing much shooting. That's going to power up her tech skills. Perfect for Contagion mod. So I would go Toxic, Tech, and Duration and Range are also really good alternative stats for her reactors. Next up, if you haven't set up your Sharen, then you're going to want to focus in on Agna Desert. The mission is called Surveillance, and it's in the Vermilion Waste area. Pretty easy mission. It goes pretty quick. You don't get a ton of enemies, so you're not going to get a lot of drops, but you're also going to get code breakers while you're there, so why not? Anyways, you're looking for an electric reactor with fusion, and then I recommend the Afterglow, but you can also do the piercing light preferences. Otherwise, fusion duration if you're building an outpost build for her, and cooldown or crits. Of course, Viessa has made it to the worthy farm list, but it's actually a really good one, and you should probably be visiting this area several times a week anyway. So this isn't a White Knight Gulch. The mission is called Borderline of Truth. It's a little bit out of the way. However, it's a really good farm for those advanced neural circuits, and that's why you should be visiting this place on a regular basis. It's going to give you chill tech with impact rounds this week. That means the Blue Beetle for Viessa. Blue Beetle is a great gun for her. It gives you 30% more crit chance when it's fully leveled up when using a fusion skill. And your most common skills are fusion. So I would go for a Blue Beetle mount with chill, tech, fusion, cooldown, crits, or range, depending on what you're using her for. All right, for components, it's a pretty decent week. In the Fallen Theater, you're going to get auxiliary powered. There was a really good farm down in the left, but any of them will really work here. And then otherwise, you got the Frozen Valley. So I recommend Command Relay. Run around in a circle, and you're also going to be getting materials for crafting energy activators. So this is always a really good farm and always really busy as well. Should be people there to give you a hand. Okay, and then from there, I've broken everything down by the zone, farm as you see fit. And of course, there's a link down below to download as usual. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
One and only.
And this was another episode of The First Descendant. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The First Descendant. And if you like videos like this, check out the one I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy or download anything for The First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.